A lot of hard work. I know it all sounds super fun, and it is super fun, but you kind of have to fall in love with the process. You can't just love the glamorous parts. Hi, I'm Walker Scobell, and this is how I became Percy Jackson and Percy Jackson and the Olympians. I first started reading Percy Jackson when I was in 3rd grade. I read it 7 times since then, the first 5 books. I was obsessed with it because I was born in Virginia Beach Hospital. There's a giant Poseidon statue, like near the beach, and I used to print out a picture and I'd bring it to school to show people and tell them, like, this is proof that I'm Percy Jackson. I was filming The Adam Project and I got an audition for Percy Jackson. My sister, she played Nancy Boba Fett. And my little brother played the teacher, Mrs. Dodds, and to get into character, he put like my mom's high heels on and he talked in a really high-pitched voice. And so you can like see me kind of cracking up in my audition. It took like maybe like 30 or 40 takes. And I have no idea how I got it, but I don't think it really like set in until I got there, until I was filming it, until like I was on camera and people were calling me Percy. I definitely think that my Percy Jackson is closer to the books than the movies were. I think a big part of that is Percy's age. He's 12 years old. I think it's very easy to forget. But I think it was very interesting to kind of explore the fact that they're still children.
Mr. Jackson, you will learn to control yourself. Do you understand me?
Me?
Do you understand me?
He can't help it, Mrs. Dodds. Percy's special.
Meeting Rick, I met him in my final kind of audition when they told me I got the part. I didn't know he was gonna show up. I wore my Camp Half-Blood t-shirt that I got in 3rd grade. I was freaking out. And so the second time I met him, I was a lot more calm and collected so I could actually talk to him. He's given me a lot of tips and tricks for playing Percy. The biggest thing was just to relax. He told me that he loved how we were playing the characters and that we were doing great so far, which kind of like set me in. And this was at the beginning, so it kind of made me relax a bit more and made me kind of lock in. Did a full month of just training and rehearsing scenes. I did a lot of underwater training and like sword fight training with the stunts team. We practiced wires a lot. I did this scene where I'm falling, it's like an overhead shot of me falling down. The Chimera sequence when I fall off the arch in St. Louis. So I was on wires and I was falling down. So we practiced that a couple times. We did a bunch of wire work and sword fighting stuff. The first day on set, we were shooting at the Met on the volume stage. I keep saying I film all these weird places, but the whole time it's on the volume stage. Just a scene where it was me and Arian are talking. We do this bit where we both have sandwiches and I would take his meat off his sandwich and he would take my cheese. And that took like a week of training. That was the first scene. I was definitely a bit nervous. Going back and watching it, it's super hard to watch. That scene specifically. I think like as the show goes on, like each episode it kind of gets easier to watch because it's like closer to now. But that first scene, it's like impossible for me and Arian to watch because that was our first day like ever filming together. I think the hardest stunt sequence was the Minotaur fight. Not only because it was just like I was fighting like a bull that doesn't exist. I think one of the most difficult parts was that it was like pouring rain and it was dark. So I couldn't really see what was going on, and a lot of like my notes for camera were to open my eyes more, which is really hard when it's like when there's rain coming in your eyes. There was a couple different ways we shot the Minotaur sequence. One was there's this like really tall, like 7-foot guy, and he was in the full skin-tight gray mocap suit holding a Minotaur head. So it was a lot less intimidating than you think it would be. So there was that when I was fighting him with like the sword. And then when I crawl onto his back, they shot that in a very interesting way. So they made a mock-up of the Minotaur, like without arms and from like the waist up. So I was on a wire and I'd sprint, and they had like a little bit of fur so I could grab onto it. I'd sprint around him and then I'd jump, grab onto the back, and then I'd get on his head. And they did a full like sequence of me ripping the horn off and stabbing him in the head. That took like maybe 3 days to shoot. It was a long sequence. I was wearing a wool sweater while we were filming the Minotaur sequence, kind of like this, and but it was like real, like sheep wool. And so when it would rain, there was a very terrible stench coming from my sweater, and it kept getting like loose because I was running around, it was pouring rain, it got heavy, and they would like constantly change that out and then dry it, and we had 2 sweaters, I think. They just rotate them, and so that took a while. Sometimes we had to pause the scene so we could let the sweater dry out. And also like Camp Half-Blood fight, I think that scene might have been like the hardest technically to film because we're like running in sand. There's 3 of them. There's Dior and then 2 of her cabin siblings, and so for every 1 move they did, I had to do 3. And so I was running backwards on like this rocky sand, doing this amazing sword fight. While we were filming that, I did not expect Dior to scream that loud. And if you look at my face, I'm not acting. I was genuinely terrified she was going to hit me. I love Dior, she's the sweetest person ever, but she's terrifying, which I think is perfect for Clarice.
People listen closer when you talk. They work harder to be your friend.
I've never had like an actual friend group that I've been super connected to until I found acting and I started Percy Jackson. And now I have like Leah and Charlie and Dior and Arian, of course. All these people that I feel like know how I'm feeling.